Hello students and parents. I wanted to take a minute to show you how I would solve some of these questions. The red numbers indicate the answer, so I'm going to be using ratio tables to solve these. So we've actually been using multiplication, which are the facts that are much more familiar to us as we have tried to solve these questions. So we've been using the multiples that we're familiar with, and then as the numbers get bigger, remember that we're putting zeros on the end to make them account for those bigger numbers. So with this first one, I'm going to start my ratio table. My target number is 60. I'm going to be using 4. So I'm going to be multiplying by 4. I'm going to start with 10 since this is a smaller fract. I'm going to do 10 times 4, which is 40. I'm always going to be coming back to that original number to see how close I am. I know that 60 minus 40 is 20. I'm going to stick a 20 here. I'm going to ask myself, what times 4 is 20? And that would be 5. So now I'm going to add these together. So 10 plus 5 is 15. 40 plus 20 is 60. And I've now proven that question. So moving on, I'm going to use the similar steps. So I'm going to trying to get to 72, and I'm going to be using 3. So I'm going to multiply by 3. I'm going to start with 10. 10 times 3 is 30. Now that's much smaller. So I'm going to double this. So the 10 becomes 20, and the 30 becomes 60. Remember, I always have the way to double check my work because I can come back and multiply. 20 times 3 is 60. So I have 2 different ways to check that work. So I'm getting closer. Now I know that 72 minus 60 is just 12. So now I'm going to do, what times 3 is 12? That would be 4. So I'm going to take these 2 numbers and add them together. And that gives me my answer of 24. Okay, moving on. Our numbers are getting bigger. So now I'm going to need to use some bigger multiples. So for this one, my target number is 110. I'm going to be counting by 5s. So I'm going to start with 20 for this one. So 20 times 5 is 100. So then I'm going to see how much more I need. Well, I only need 10 more. So that means 2 times 5 is 10. If I add these together, I'm going to get 22. So my quotient for this one is 22. And as you go down the paper, you're going to notice that the numbers are getting bigger. So now I'm at 258, and I'm trying to count by 6s. This one's a little bit bigger, so I'm going to set my table up. But before I start picking numbers, I want to make sure I pick a number that's big enough. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write some big multiples. So I'm going to start with 60, then I'll do 120. And remember, these are just my multiples of 6, but I've put the 0 on the end to make them 10 times bigger. Next would be 18, then 24, then 240, then 300. And if you remember, my original number is 258. So I'm going to stop once I get to the number that's over it. And I'm going to focus on this one. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to put 240 on the bottom because that's going to take a big chunk of my numbers, of my amount away. So what times 6 is 240? That would be 40. So now, if I look over here, I'm going to do, just to double check, and you may be able to do this in your head, but if you can't, just set up a quick subtraction because I'm doing this checking step to see how much more I need. So, looks like I'm going to need 18 more. So I'm going to plug that 18 into the bottom because if I add these 2 numbers together, that means I have the amount that I need. So what times 6 is 18? Well, that's 3. And then since I put these 2 together, I'm going to put these 2 together. So my answer is 43. All right, next one. Another one with big numbers. Oh, paper's getting wobbly. So I'm trying to get 430, and I'm going with by fives. Again, a big, big number. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to start with 50, 100, give me 1 second while I write these numbers out because I can't do it with the paper and holding the camera. Oh, and I messed up at the bottom, but I have found that I get to 400 and then I go right to 450. I'm trying to get that 430. So I'm going to focus on 400. Okay, so when I set my table up, I'm going to be multiplying by 5. Okay, I'm going to start with asking myself what times 5 gives me 400. And that should be 80. So 8 times 5 is 400. So if I look back at my original number, I'm only 30 away from it. So I'm going to plug 30 into the bottom. And then I'm asking myself the same thing. What times 5 is 30? 6. I'm going to add these two numbers together. And I get my quotient. All right, thank you for watching the front side. You can watch the next video for the back.